Have you ever wavered from a good idea that you felt strongly about, but you just didn't have the support that you needed? We'll find out how to get back on track in today's Innovator Interview with Shelia Butler. All right, and welcome to Lipstick Unplugged. This is your no-gloss business branding show that gives women coaches the confidence, mentoring, and resources that they need to change their lives and impact the world through entrepreneurship. So I'm your host, Dee Copeland Patience, and today we have on the show Shelia Butler, who's a friend of mine. She has a really good web show called Successful Women Talk. And today we talked about some really difficult times that Shelia hit recently and how she handled those, because no matter what we're doing in our businesses, the fact is we're going to hit some rough patches in our life. So we talk about how she handled that and how she was able to take the time that she needed to move forward. Now, another thing that we talked about is why it took her so long to find her target audience. Everyone knows that they need to niche it down, and we talked about how women especially often take so long and what you can do to save yourself some time and wasted effort maybe even sometimes. We also at the end talked about how to find really good mentors that's going to save you some time to grow your online business. So today's interview is really all about that precious, precious time that we have and how we can take it for ourselves and kind of reclaim your life for your family and for other things that you love. So I hope you enjoy this one as much as I did, and I will see you on the other side. All right, so I'm excited. On today's show, I have Shelia Butler, and she is the host of one of my favorite shows, Successful Women Talk. We're in a lot of groups together, and I wanted to introduce her to you because Shelia ran a very successful offline business, and I don't know the order, but she became a mom, and now she's running an online business. She has her own web show where she interviews some really awesome women. So I know that there's a lot going on there, and I thought you might want to learn from it. So welcome, Shelia, to the show.
Hi, thanks, Dee. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Cool. And so we were just talking before the show, and I told you that one of the reasons I wanted you on the show is because I like your show, but the problem with web shows and some of the stuff that we do online is that we don't really get to tell our story and get really personal. And I feel that I like you so much. There's a reason for it. And I wanted to dive into more about your background and why this is so important to you, because I think that the audience can learn from that. And then we're going to go into some of those challenges that you face when growing your online business, because we're all going through the same thing.
Sure.
So first, tell us a little bit more about, well, start to the now, right? Why did you start your show? What was that all about? And when you became a mom?
Sure. So I started my show basically because it's kind of a story, but I did have an offline business, a very successful offline business, and I sold it about almost 3 years ago. I was in partnership, and that partnership dissolved, and so I was kind of forced to sell my part of the business, and it was a very traumatic time for me. I had just adopted my second son. He was 1 month old, had an 11-month-old. It was just a tough time for me, and I didn't know what I wanted to do. I knew I wanted to help women, but I didn't know how. So I got online. I didn't know what else to do. I knew what I was really good at, and I thought, I didn't have a mentor, and so I started learning about online business. And I was fascinated with it because with my offline business, we had a website, but it was like a brochure site. So we didn't really do anything on the web, and I knew nothing about online business. And first book I read, I think, was Crush It by Gary Vaynerchuk. And I can remember I was actually listening to it. I was at the gym on the treadmill, and I'm like, oh, this is awesome. So that's kind of why I started, because every successful person that usually Google successful, it's usually a man. I don't have anything wrong with that, except for the fact that there are so many women out there doing amazing things. And I think their story needs to be highlighted. I want to share their stories, and I want to give people some insight of where I've come from and how I grew a business and what I know to do, and share that and hopefully inspire. If I can inspire one person, it's worth it to me.
See, that's awesome. And that's exactly, I think we're both in the same boat. Is a lot of us, like for instance, when I was looking at successful entrepreneurs, I saw it was a lot of men when I saw anyone who's really killing it online. And some of them are our mentors. And so we really wanted, I think there's a lot more women that's going to be highlighting other women, featuring them. It's the same thing with my interview with Maura Forbes. She said, women can really do some great things in the world, and we really, really need to start telling those stories.
I agree. And, and they're out there. But I do find it a little bit more challenging to find them. And I know they're out there, but I think women are almost afraid to toot their own horn. We don't, we're not, that's just not the way most of us are. So even getting women on the show now, they're like, oh, I was so nervous. I don't really like to promote myself like that. It's interesting, but they have such great stories to share. I'm just going to keep at it.
Well, yeah, we're going to have them get over that.
Exactly.
Really quick. So one of the things that you kind of, for a couple weeks there, I was worried about you, right? And you were online, you're on Twitter, you're pretty active on Twitter, and all of a sudden I wasn't hearing from you, and so I wanted you to. I know that it was a tough time for you, and so I wanted to, and whatever you feel comfortable with. I've been through a similar thing with my mom, but can you tell me kind of what happened and what the impact that had on you?
Sure. So, yeah, recently I've gone through a lot of things in my family, but and this is not a story that I don't know that I've ever really shared online. And people that know me know, but a lot of people automatically assume I have two kids, 4-year-old and 3-year-old, automatically assume that I have a husband and I'm married, and I'm not. I have a partner, and we've been together for 15 years, and her father passed away about 2 weeks ago. So he was really sick, and they're a big part of my life. They're my family, and I was there. And then my uncle passed away right after that. So I had a couple of deaths in the family, and we have 2 young boys, and trying to explain that and juggle jobs and responsibilities and family and funerals, and it was a tough time. So I just had to kind of step back, put my family first. And, I was offline a bit, and it was okay. It was a little strange for me, but it was okay. And, be with my family, because family comes first no matter what.
And so tell me then, on that day that you got the news, it's really tough, right? I mean, my mom passed away, and it's kind of one of those things where it's difficult because the woman that's listening to us right now, at some point, you're going to have something really bad happen. And it's difficult because you have a business to run. So how do you handle that? How did you make those decisions about what's important, which phone call to answer?
Yeah, I think that's a really great question, Dee. And I am a pretty system. I'm kind of a nut and a nerd when it comes to systems and processes. And a lot of people, ask how I grew, an offline business to, 7 million in revenue. And several reasons, but one of those is that we had systems in place, and I could leave that business for 2 weeks at a time and travel internationally for business, and my company would continue to run. And that's how I set up my business today. Even with Successful Women Talk, I try and have everything as scheduled as possible, so that it continues to run without me, in a sense. That way I can step out. Now I still have to do things, but I don't feel that terrible pressure of, oh gosh, I'm not getting anything done, because I've already sort of prepared for those things. I've already done the editing, I've done the recording of the episodes, I've written the posts, etc. So I think being structured, organized, and systemized helps when you have hiccups happen in your life, because they're going to happen. No matter what, no matter how prepared you are. So, and it's not going to make the hiccup easier. It's just going to make you be less stressed about the hiccup, because you've already got those things in place. So in my opinion, kind of keeping everything systemized is really important.
Well, then give us some insight then, because I agree. When my mom passed away, it was in 2007, and it's one of the reasons why I shut down my real estate business. So kind of like you, I had an offline business. I was blogging, but I had a team in place. So my systems were that, because it's real estate business, I had a team, and they picked up the ball, and it helped me tremendously get through the grief, get through every day. And so with an online business, though, we're kind of alone in doing it ourselves most times. So what are your systems like that allowed you to be able to take that time that you needed to kind of recoup?
Sure. No, that's a great question. I try and keep everything on a schedule. So I use Google Calendar pretty heavily, and I try and keep everything organized and scheduled. I know when my posts are going to go live. I have a format. I have everything templated for so I just drop the new information into it. So whether that be an email that I send out to the guest, everything is already set up in templates. So it makes it easy. It doesn't mean that I'm not going to still spend time doing it, but it narrows down and it limits the amount of time that I have to do. So it just makes it's just easier. So I just drop and drag those things in there. It's already pre-formatted, set up. And so the changes and tweaks that I have to make are minimal. And so that really helps me.
Good. And so one of the things I was thinking is that I wanted to tell, I work with women coaches. And so one of the things I've noticed is that it really, really helps that as we're going through our systems and our processes, one of the things I learned, and I believe this from Clay Collins, is one of his easiest opt-in gifts was that he gave away 7 free templates. It was 7 free landing page templates. And that's what I learned recently from our one of my mentors, David Siteman Garland. He was talking about how there was all this testing done. And so one of the things I noticed is as women, we don't see those opportunities for revenue and easy opt-ins. And so, for instance, you have these templates and these ways of running your business, and you have everything down, and you call yourself kind of this productivity nerd. And so I'm thinking, are you going to sell your templates?
Yeah, that's a good. You just have great questions. Yeah, I think that's a great question as well. And my mastermind group, this is one of the things that's on my list. I do not only am I a mom first. I also have a kids line called Me Giant. So I have a kids line of home decor and furnishings, and I also have Successful Women Talk. So I'm pretty busy. So I have to stay.
Oh goodness, I'm tired just listening to you.
But and I do coaching and consulting around processes, systems, and organizing, work-life balance. So I also have some pretty big clients that I work with there. So, but with that coaching and consulting, I have promised for 2013, a big thing for me is to get my products up. So what I have found is that there are a lot of creative women out there, and they have businesses and they're making money in spite of themselves, but they are very unorganized and extremely overwhelmed.
Oh, yeah.
And a lot of that is when I go into a business is I can look at their systems and why do you do it that way? Or, when you're someone seeing it from the outside, when you're in it, you don't see it. But if, helping them get their businesses organized and reclaiming their time, that's something that we can't get more of. It's a limited thing. Our time is limited. So, I want to spend more time with my family. So I want to make sure that my businesses are structured. And I help people do that. So 2013, I am not only going to continue with my coaching and consulting, but I'm going to get some products out there as well.
And one thing that you just mentioned, because another thing I mentioned before the show that I'm kind of bossy. I didn't say it that way, but a lot of times if I spot something, I say, hey, why aren't you doing that? And I mentioned this, big long email that I sent to Amy Porterfield telling her, why aren't you telling your story more often? You're always giving tips and tactics, and people are sucking all this knowledge out of you. But I don't hear the Amy story. That's that really big story. And so one of the things that you just mentioned is I think you told me your why, which is one thing that I tell people is a big deal. You lead when you introduce your business. Why is it so important to you? And that's what I wanted to draw out of you, by the way, in this interview. You mentioned that you're a productivity nerd and you like these things. And I wanted to know, why is that so important to Shelia? Because that's how you're going to build your message. And so You just told me that it's because women, you want them to reclaim their time so that they can spend it in their family. They're not going to be frustrated. They're not going to have this. They're going to make more money. And both of us know that because I'm a productivity nerd too. I'm an ops nerd. Very proud ops nerd too. So that's another reason we get along. But so tell me more. Then you're this productivity nerd. You have all these other business. Why the heck would you want to do a web show though? Out of all the things, this is so much work. Why did you choose web show? You mentioned it a little bit earlier, but why that?
That's a good question as well. And I think it's because when I started looking, and I started following David Siteman Garland as well. When you remember when I told you I was on the treadmill listening to Gary Vaynerchuk, somehow I found David Siteman Garland. Then I found Andrew Warner over at Mixergy. But there were no women doing this. And I thought, wow, there's such a need because we still need to share those stories. When I started my first business with my business partner, we had met in business school. And he was a marketer and I was in the healthcare field. I knew nothing about home furnishings and decor, zero. And neither of us had ever ran a business. So we learned by trial and error. And we were lucky because we were successful. But what I found is that the more organized we got the business, the more profitable we were, the better it ran. It could run without us and we could have a life. And the same thing with me now. My why is I want to show women that you can have it both. I think there are a lot of women out there that want to be good moms or wives, whatever that is. But for me, I want to be a good mom. But that's not the only thing that defines me. I also love being an entrepreneur. I love being a businesswoman. I'm passionate about it. Small business, people get sick of hearing me talk about it. I love it. So I want to do both, but I can't do both if I'm not organized because the other day I was talking to Carrie Wilkerson. We were talking about work-life balance, and she calls it work-life rhythm. And you kind of have to go with the flow, and I agree with that. So sometimes I'm really heavy. Fridays are my packet full of work. My weekend, I do no work. I spend, my whole weekend just with my boys and my partner. That's all we do is we spend really good quality time. When I'm doing quality work, I'm doing quality work. When I'm doing quality fun, I'm doing quality fun.
That is
awesome. I think it's important.
Yes, it is, and that's awesome. And I love that from that interview. By the way, I'm going to link it in the show notes because Carrie Wilkinson, she's another Texas powerhouse. We're talking about all the women who are doing this, who are from Texas, and she's just inspirational too, and I'm pretty sure the two of us are going to do some big things like her. Forgot how many Twitter followers she has. It was like 200 and something, ridiculous. So let's talk about this as we wind down. We have maybe the last 5-10 minutes of the show, but you told me a little bit about your bold goal. You're going to really try to sell, package your products, that type of thing. But I really want to know, and I know my audience, they'll kill me if I don't ask this. You're talking to successful women on these shows. I know at some point something hit you that you said, holy moly, I never thought of it that way. Or just this aha, like open your eyes, mind blown. So can you tell us maybe about, if you can kind of remember a couple of those interviews that you were just like, oh my gosh, this is awesome.
Yeah, oh gosh, I really loved my interview with Carrie Wilkerson. I thought that was really good. I've done several, but I think the biggest thing for me is for my personal aha is that when I started the show, I started and I wasn't really sure what my niche was going to be. I wasn't, I know I've read about it. I have studied online business so much. I know you're supposed to narrow down. I know it. I know in theory, I get it, but I couldn't. What I thought I wanted my niche to be, I thought it was kind of boring. And then the other day, I'm at 60 shows in now, and I finally know what I need to be doing. And I know who my target audience is, and it's taken me 60 shows to get right back to where I started with, which is I want to help creative and product-based women, business owners, become more organized, work smarter, be productive, and live giant. I want them to be able to reclaim their time. That's why I really started this, but it took me full circle to get back there. And I finally had that aha moment the other day. I'm like, why am I going down these crazy paths instead of doing what I know I should be doing? And now that's now where I am, right back where my original goal was in the beginning. I don't know. Sometimes I'm a West Texas girl, so we have to kind of go roundabout way, sometimes get right back to where we're going. That's exactly what I did.
You know what? And that's something I got called, and I like it, a niche nerd the other day, or niche or whatever. But they called me. They said, "Are you a niche nerd?" And I was like, because I'm so big on that. I'm branding. You can't brand yourself if you're talking to everyone. And remember, I asked you. I said, Sheila, who's your target audience and what's your goal? Because I was trying to figure out how we might be able to work together, how I can promote you, because I'm huge on promoting other women. And so I wanted to know then. Because why did you go that circle? What were some of the things, because I know what happened to me. There's things that happen when you try to run a business that you start going down these little rabbit holes. Mm-hmm. Tell me some things that you did, and why did you go down those rabbit holes in the first place?
Wow, I think that I probably didn't plan as much as what I should have. I knew what I wanted to do, I thought, but then I'm also doing all this learning at the same time. I'm an avid learner, so I continue to read, and I rarely watch TV. I listen to podcasts all the time, so I think I was trying to interview people that I don't know what exactly made me do it. I just wasn't focused enough on the people that I needed to be focused on. So I think that caused me not to really target them like I should be. And it's tough. And I know, and the whole reason that I'm doing this whole consulting and coaching thing, it gives me great pleasure when I go into a business and I talk with a business owner and I listen to them and they're like, how do you know that? And I don't know. It comes natural to me. It's learning the process of things and how to make things to work smarter. It just comes natural to me. And I want to share that and all the gifts that I've learned with those types of people. And I don't really know why it took me so long to get to that point. The people in my mastermind group, they give me a hard time all the time because I'm right back to where I started.
Yeah, I think that's
I don't know. I wish I had a better answer as to why it's taken me this long. And it's not terribly long. It's like 7 or 8 months. But, you know, in internet years, that's a long time. It's like dog years, right?
Yeah. And
So,
I can tell you what I think that happens is that we start doubting ourselves.
Yeah.
You start with who you want to serve, because I had so many people say, Dee, you're about branding, and they've seen I built a map for my Rebel brand strategy and the roadmap. And so people say, but everyone needs this. And then why are you only talking to just women, or why women coaches? And it's because that's who I love serving.
Yeah.
And you move away from that and you try all this stuff and social media. And if you're doing a podcast or a show like us, you start trying to interview guests who maybe have a following. But one of the things that, right?
That's a great point. Yep. You nailed it.
Yeah. And so what happens is you try to follow where you think the money is or where you think the following is, instead of doing what you want. And so one of the differences in my show, as I said from the start, because I've seen it too much, is that I'm only going to interview women that I love. By the way, so I'm looking at you, women that I really respect and love, because my audience needs to know that I really care about this person, and here's why they should. And that's why I want you to tell your story and your why, because it's more than just the tactics that Sheila's going to give us on this call.
Yeah, you know, Dee, that is the best point ever, because it is true. Because we're putting it out there, right? So we want people to find us and follow it, and I agree, and that's probably some of what I did as well. I interviewed people that really were, because they did have a following, and I thought that would help me. But what I have found is that those have not been my best interviews. My best interviews, I did an interview the other day with someone that owns a small business that's, she makes thigh-high socks for kids. It was an awesome interview because I've walked in her shoes. I've owned a product-based business. I feel her pain. She has 4 kids. I don't feel that pain, nor do I want to. But I know her. I connected, and I walked away and said, that's what I'm doing. I know her pain. She's not as organized, and admittedly so, as what she needs to be. I know the things that she can put into place for her business that would make her life better. Those are the people I need to target. That's my why.
That's
and
awesome.
I don't know why it took me so long to get there. And another thing I'm afraid of, because when I was that person in that product-based business, I didn't look for a mentor. I didn't go online and listen to podcasts looking for someone to help me get organized. I figured it out myself. So that scared me a little bit as well. If I wasn't looking, maybe they're not looking. Maybe they don't know that their system's broken. So I still 100% haven't figured out how I'm going to get to them, but I will. I'm going to figure it out.
All right, so I have one more question, and then we're going to talk about, you mentioned selling your products, but I want to know a specific bold goal that you have for the new year, something that's a big business challenge, a push that's going to test your limits, something specific. But I also wanted to ask, just before we do that, you mentioned mentors, which is huge to me. And I have a philosophy called reach forward and reach back. You're climbing up that hill, you need to reach forward towards someone, but you also pull someone with you. So I wanted to know then, if someone's just getting started, if the woman that's listened to us, she's kind of on that path, she doesn't know where to go, where can she start and get that kind of safe feeling that maybe she's getting the information that she needs?
I guess it kind of depends upon what path that they're on. But, I recently, this is another bad thing I did, is I didn't put my newsletter in place as quickly as what I should have. And I've really gotten on board with that. And what I've done lately is when I first send out an email response of thank you for signing up for the newsletter, I asked them to tell me more about themselves. And it's the best thing I've ever done, because I have found that they're honest. People are very honest. And I love giving. I was emailing a lady yesterday, and I gave her like 5 different people. Amy Porterfield was one of those. Carrie Wilkerson was one of those. Some of our shows are those things. And, get out there and learn. It's okay to learn. Find your path, and then find out who the thought leaders are in that path. But not only that, but, reaching outside of that path sometimes, and learning more about life stuff instead of just business tactics, kind of like you talked about with Amy Porterfield. You want to know that whole package. So I think finding a mentor is important.
Well, that's absolutely awesome. We're going to talk about your bold goal and then tell us where we can track you. We're going to just follow you for the rest of our lives. Tell us where we can follow you online then.
Sure. Best place to follow me is probably at my website, successfulwomentalk.com. And you can find me on Twitter at successfulwt. And then I'm on Facebook as well, Pinterest. But mainly, I love Twitter, mainly for communicating. I don't think it's the best marketing thing, but I think Twitter is like it's taking the place of the water cooler for me, not being in corporate America. So I see Twitter as my little chatting place and communicating and engaging, and that's what, to me, that's what it's all about. I built a very successful business on building relationships and being human and talking with people, and I think that the online business has to be the same way. A lot of people think social media is going to save them. I think social media is nothing more than a communication tool.
I absolutely
People
agree.
want to do business with people.
Absolutely. And so take us out with your big, big, bold goal.
Big, big, bold goal is to put together some type of program, both a smaller step program and then a larger program, to help creatives and product-based business women be able to organize their business, work, like I said, work smart, be productive, and then reclaim their time. So whether that be showing them how to systemize their emails and calendars and business processes and the way that they, gain customers. And so I really want to share all the things that took me, 12 years to learn. And because I know it can make a difference in their businesses, I want to figure out a way to get that out there and make that available for those business women. I've got to find them, and I've got to do it.
All right. Well, thank you so much for being on the show. It was a great interview, and I know that you're going to do so well with that. That's it for today's Innovator Interview. I hope you enjoyed the show. For more inspiring mentor interviews, the show notes, and your Rebel Action worksheet, visit lipstickunplug.com.